Hello, everybody. I appreciate you all coming out today. It's an honor to be here, and it's exciting to meet so many different people. We've been I've been wanting to come, since last year, and it's exciting to be here this year. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we do, and also talk to you about some gardening tips and some really cool varieties we've been growing, and some new things, as well as some stories behind some of the varieties we offer. And anyway, this is Jessica. She's one of our managers at the company in Missouri, and my kids are over there. Some of them are over there, and then my wife's over there as well. So we're really excited to be here. We thank Rory for having us, and we really love this part of the country. After this, we're going to continue back east and wander around through the different parts of Tennessee and North Carolina. So it's kind of a great time of year to get out and see all the beautiful sights. I hope all of you get to explore a little around the area here. It's just really pretty. But anyway, I'm Jere Gettle, and I started Baker Creek Seed Company back in 1998. It was basically a hobby. I knew from a very small child, I knew gardening with my grandparents and parents. I knew that I wanted to someday work for a seed company. I'd get the old Gurney's catalogs and look through the middle of winter. We lived in the Boise Valley up in Idaho, Oregon area, and sitting there as a 3, 4, 5-year-old child, I would dream about what it must be like, working with seeds. And as I got older, I started trying to figure out how to put that together to make it into a business. And anyway, maybe you could advance to this is some of my grandparents. They were immigrants from Mexico on my dad's side, and they always had big gardens. These were actually great-grandparents. But my family on both sides had a lot of gardeners, which most people not very long ago, pretty much if you wanted to have fresh vegetables, you gardened. So that was pretty typical. And immigrant families, especially coming here, didn't have a lot of money, so you pretty much put in a garden. Here's on the other side of my family in Colorado. They immigrated over from the Ukraine and, grew big fields. They moved to eastern Colorado where they had deep soil. It wasn't as good as the Ukraine, but they still, grew wonderful vegetables. And my great-grandfather, till the time he passed away, always talked about, the soil back home where he was from. But he always gardened, always farmed. And once it gets in your blood, it's kind of hard to lose it. You always want to, no matter how old you are, you always want to at least grow something. Here I am as about a 2-year-old, probably in 1982, in the Boise Valley. My parents grew about 2 acres of garden and orchard. And that's kind of some of our pumpkins and squashes that we would harvest. And there's my grandmother, Bertha Hernandez Gettle. She was an amazing gardener, amazing cook. Every morning I'd wake up and she would go up to her little trailer house, and she'd be cooking fresh tortillas and tamales. And as soon as she was done cooking breakfast, she'd be out in the garden growing beans and corn and just flowers and all sorts of stuff in her garden, and as well as harvesting a lot of different weeds and stuff and cooking with them. So she always inspired me to, be in the garden, as well as my parents. In 1998, I decided, okay, why not put out a little price list? I started saving seeds a few years before that. As soon as I could start to, write, basically, I started to write for seed catalogs. So when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, I was ordering more and more catalogs. Tomato Growers Supply Company, and then I got a little older and I would order Seed Savers Exchange's catalog in my mid-teens, and I kept getting more and more seed catalogs, and the internet was coming out about that time, so I started hopping online, and it opened up a whole new world of amazing vegetables and flowers and fruits and seeds of all sorts. So that was the start, 12 pages. It went out to about 500 different customers, mostly in Missouri, people that would request it out of local newspaper ads. The following year was 1999, kind of like the COVID crisis we just came through. A lot of people were thinking, okay, we might have to grow our own food. And whenever there's kind of a downturn in the economy or any kind of sensitivity with, potential economy or war or anything like that, it always makes people get back to gardening. And that gave us our initial start. So we started producing catalogs, and each year it's been busier and busier. And this year we mailed out about 1.4 million catalogs, I think. And here's some of the covers over the years. There's some of the whole seed catalogs, and that's Andrew, one of our gardeners at the farm there. And in 2000, we put in our first seed store. We were, blessed to get enough money after 1999 to It took about $1,600 to build the little seed store here. We built it out of really cheap lumber. It was lower than thirds. It was like, it was like the reject lumber. We put it together, and it's still holding up over all these years. I mean, it's didn't take a lot of money, but there's a picture of the inside of the seed store where our seed packets. It's still decorated pretty much the same as it was, 20-some years ago. And there's a lot of our seed packets. We have wonderful photographers, and we're always growing different things for photos as well as trials. So any given year, we'll grow about 3,000 or so different lots of seeds. About half of them are new and half of them are things in the catalog. We try to grow everything in the catalog every year. We want to know how it's doing, and we also want to eat it and taste it and smell it. It's just, it's hard being without, say, Cherokee Purple or whatever the variety is. You want to have it every year, and you want to taste it every year. So here's my family, my wife Emily, and our children, Sasha, Ella, Sion, and Malia. And now we have a little one, Levi. He's over there in the buggy over there. But here's another picture of us in the gardens there. Here's a picture of our we have a little village on our farm there. We have a bakery, restaurant, a little blacksmith shop, the seed store, and lots of gardens, of course, as well as my wife has a shop and a few other things on the farm there. But the biggest thing people come out for is to look, especially in the spring. The flowers are when they're blooming. We have festivals. We're open 5 days a week otherwise, so people come in and explore through the gardens, and it's always a lot of fun. Here's a picture of one of our festivals. We started the festivals about 20-some years ago, and each year it's gotten busier. This last year we just had 2 festivals, one in April and one in May, and we had around 8,000 people to each event over 2 days. And it's a lot of fun. A lot of the same types of people here that are interested in growing their own food, and was honored, to have Rory Feek at the event as well. Here's a picture of inside our restaurant on the farm. Most of the produce that we serve in the restaurant is grown on the farm there. Here's a picture inside our new warehouse. And when COVID started, we were in about two 6,000 square foot warehouses. And it got so busy, we were already kind of maxed out, and the demand for seeds tripled within a few weeks. And all of a sudden, the New York Times was calling, and we didn't even call them back because we were so busy. And the Telegraph called, and everybody wanted to cover the seed shortage, but most of the seed companies didn't really want it covered because everybody was already more behind than we knew what to do with. Us and many other companies would have our websites open for a few weeks, then we'd close them for a few weeks. And it was really frustrating to consumers because you were desperate to get seeds, and you go to a site and the nursery, the seed company, or the hatchery, or whatever is closed down this week. So the demand for seeds exceeded the supply in some cases, and it definitely exceeded most seed companies' ability to get stuff packaged and mailed out at the same time with additional requirements and potentially having people sick. So it made it a really busy time. So in the meantime, we put in these new warehouses. It's total now of about 105,000 square feet, and it gives us a lot more ability to keep up. We're finally able to keep up again. Here's some of our staff. We have a great team. Most of the people we've hired over the years love gardening, so we've got everybody from beginner gardeners to master horticulturalists. So it's great to have people that are passionate about what they do. One of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about is high tunnels and greenhouses. They've totally changed the way we garden and farm in Missouri. We went from having basically one season, one good season and a little bit in the spring and a little bit in the fall, to now having 3 full seasons. And we're also able to fit in a lot of crops we could never grow well before. There's a lot of things that like more cool weather. It's broccoli and cauliflower is really hard if you're in an area with cold winters and hot summers. It likes either a cool winter or a cool summer. It doesn't like a cold winter or a hot summer. So with the greenhouses, with almost no heat, we're able to grow beautiful 5-pound head cauliflower one after another. It's just super easy. So we have cauliflower for 6, 7, 8 months of the year. Then we switch over the other half of the year to melons and tomatoes and other crops that have heavy insect pressure outside, as well as we're putting stuff outside as well, of course. But the quality of the fruit is so much different. If you're growing a tomato outside in the South or anywhere in the Midwest, there's lots of things to eat the fruit. Inside, it protects it. Probably 98% of the insect pressure is gone. these things for us, we project from what we've been able to produce in them. Like for a home gardener, for the cost of a high tunnel, if you find a reasonable one and put in a moderate-sized one with limited heat, you're really able to pay for it probably, if you're eating it, if just for yourself, just for your family, if you eat a lot of vegetables, you're able to pay for itself in less than a year. I mean, it really, if you're willing to work it and keep it producing, you can get, in like one of these guys, you can get 6,000 heads of bok choy or lettuce at one time. And that can be produced every like 45 days if you're putting little transplants in. So for a farmer's market grower or for a home gardener, the greenhouses definitely make a difference. It's an investment, depending on where you get them, anywhere from, if you shop around, anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 to get a decent size from like home gardener, and a commercial size one would be $6,000 to $10,000, depending on the size or more. But the amount of produce you can get and the quality of the produce definitely makes a difference for us. And we also can grow many other crops that we never thought possible in Missouri with almost no heat. Here's Rory. He visited actually last fall. He was at the Laura Ingalls Wilder house, and he came out to our place, and I've seen him in the restaurant eating lunch, and I was like, I know that guy from somewhere, and I walked up to him and introduced myself, and it was, I had to go to we had a doctor's appointment. I had to leave, and I was like, are you only here today? And he's like, I'm in town again tomorrow. I'll come on out tomorrow if you're coming back. And I was like, that would be amazing. So he came for several, like 3 or 4 hours, and Jessica was able to visit with him and a lot of our team, and just really kind, the most kind, amazing gentleman. And we gave him a tour, and we got talking, and we're like, we'd love to have you at our festival in the spring. And he invited us out, and Jessica's been here for a few days as well. But anyway, here's a picture inside of our Walipini, or it's basically based off of the Chinese pit-style greenhouses. There's several million acres of these in China, and they're basically, it's a dirt wall in the back, about 11 feet of dirt here that's about 3 feet thick. In the front, we have about a 5-foot dirt wall, and then we have an insulated roof right here, and then the plastic down here. So we eliminate probably like 70% of our, 70% of our surface area to lose heat. So it basically makes heating almost non-existent in this greenhouse. You can grow, like in this climate here, you could grow citrus in here, you can grow lettuce in here all winter without heat easily. You can't really grow tomatoes all winter because of both lighting and heat, but you can grow them probably through December. January, February, the low light is a little difficult, but then you could grow them again starting in like February, March, April. And this one's 380 foot long. The amount of melons like you can plant in here, you can get tons, literally tons of melons out of this. Or like this is stock flowers that we're trialing. We sell a lot of stock seed. It's a flower. And we have like 40 different varieties in here with a total of 4,000 plants in this greenhouse. This was just a few weeks ago. Now we pulled it all out, and we put in probably about 1,000 melon plants. And when I get... It's Walipini, but it's Walipini is what it's known as a lot in America, but it's the best stuff you can look up is the Chinese resources. Like if you look Chinese pit greenhouses, some of it's in English, like PIT, pit. Chinese pit greenhouses, there's lots of resources in Chinese, but you can also find quite a bit translated into English. But they have a lot of research on these. This is how they produce strawberries in the winter in China, and China with a similar climate to here, or even farther north, it would be more like an Indiana climate. They're producing the vast majority of their own food in these in China for some crops, not every crop, but things like strawberries and lettuce and stuff that they would have to import. With these, they can totally take away the need to import and make it much more self-sufficient. This is a giant one. It took way more work than we thought. It probably, it would be better to start with a smaller one, but we thought, hey, this is going to be easy. Let's go for it big. Let's make it huge. So it's like over 1/3 of an acre in size. But it's better to start with a smaller one and get the problem solved before you start, because we had to kind of address the problems as we went along. But we also have tubes that go underground. There's a guy in, I can't remember his name right now, but if you look him up, it's Greenhouses in the Snow, or anyway, he's in Nebraska. But he also has different elements of this put into his as well, and we got this one from him. We buried about 3.5 miles of drainage pipe under the soil outside, and we pump it in one end and pump it back in the other, and it takes air down, and in the summertime it cools the air, and in the wintertime it warms the air. So we were bringing in cool and warm air pumping it for just like maybe $1 a day with a low energy pump and just pumping that air circulating under the ground. It's a lot of money, again, to install that. So it's depending on if it's worth it or not. It kind of depends on what you're growing and what you want to do. It definitely helps. Long term, it's definitely worth it, but it's a lot of upfront costs just buying the pipe and burying the pipe. But it's definitely for a long-term situation, a greenhouse like this. If the fuel prices stay high, it definitely pays off. If the fuel prices are lower, if you're in the South, just a hoop house or a high tunnel is probably more than sufficient to take care of what you need. Citrus has been one of the main things we've tried in Missouri that we've been successful with. This past year, we had over 6,000, mostly oranges, but we also have a variety of other citrus. As you can see, the trees are just loaded. This is the variety known in the stores as Sumo. In Japan, it's called Dekopon, but it's one of the sweetest, if not sweetest, oranges you can get. It's a cross between a navel orange and mandarin. It was developed in Japan in the 1970s. It's seedless generally and just incredibly sweet. My children, as soon as it's gone for the year, we go back and try to buy a store-bought orange, and it's just not the same. But as far as growing these, if you can grow lettuce in a greenhouse, you can grow citrus. If anything, it's easier than lettuce. There's less pests. There's a few pests that it gets. It needs quite a bit of fertilizer, compost, whatever, to keep rich soil. But other than that, it doesn't take a lot of water. And the nice thing about citrus, it loves hot summers and it loves cool winters. So inside a greenhouse, in this climate, like a zone 7, I think you're probably a zone 7. Depending on where you're at, you're zone 6 or 7, or, of course, it's a wider, people are from all over. If you're in the South, you don't need any heat at all. If you're in 6 or 7, you need a bit of heat whenever the temperature drops down close to, in the zero-ish range. These things don't like to go below about 15 degrees at the most they will take. Some varieties will go down into the less than 15, but this variety, it's best to keep it above 20 degrees. So if your temperature outside in a high tunnel is 10 degrees, outside, inside it's about 20 degrees. So, anytime you go below 10 degrees, you may want to consider adding a little heat. But it's very little heat for the amount of fruit you get. I mean, it was close to probably 4,000 pounds. These right now in the grocery stores, non-organic, these were grown organically. They're not certified, but they're grown organically. But the non-organic ones are selling right now at, like, if you go to a Whole Foods or a Costco or wherever that has them, Kroger's, they're usually at $4 a pound. So I've seen them as high as $4.99 and as low as $2.99, but they average about $3.99 a pound. And, if that 4,000 pounds of them, that's quite a bit of money in these things. And the nice thing is, underneath these trees, for the first 4 years, you can grow lettuce because it doesn't shade them out until they get a little bigger. And then once they get about 4 years in, you go from the first year, you might get 50 oranges off of 50 trees. We have 40 trees actually, but the first year and you'll get a light harvest, and then the next year might be 200, the next year might be 800, and then we're all the way, last year was probably like 2,000, and then this year was like 6,000. And I don't know, each year seems to be going on an upward scale. The other thing you can do in these houses is raise chickens under the citrus, because chickens don't like citrus in general, we found. They won't really bother it, plus it's hanging up high. So if you have like laying hens or whatever, anything you want to keep under them, as long as you don't overpopulate and they scratch the soil too bad. But a small, well-managed flock is perfect under there. Shade-loving plants are perfect under there. So there's a lot you can do underneath these trees as well. Another picture of our village with the festival going on, and people come out and shop for plants. There's thousands of different kinds of plants people bring. We have a lot of vendors with plants at the festival at Southern Missouri. We also host an event in California. Besides the 3 events in Missouri we do each year, we do the National Heirloom Expo in California. This year it's in Ventura, California, right north of LA. But this event is basically a celebration of produce. People come out, they can't believe the hundreds of varieties of squash or dragon fruit or tomatoes or whatever it is. People come for inspiration. They also come for gardening talks and vendors and so forth. And this year it's right on the beach, so I'm kind of excited about that. The kids are going to be excited about being right, in Ventura, right on the fairgrounds is right across the street from the beach. Our company we grow a lot of seeds right on our farm in Missouri, but we also depend on a network of probably 150 to 200 different growers, small farmers, small seed breeders This gentleman, Solomon, that's him and his son in Ghana. He comes to our place every so often in Missouri, but a super knowledgeable seed guy. A lot of the people that work with us have been in seeds since they were really little. The majority of them were interested when they were kids, kind of like me. They grew up and they were passionate about seeds. He's also has now started his own seed company in Ghana after coming over to where we're at, and he's doing heirloom seeds in Ghana, selling them locally as well as raising seeds for us and others. But super cool guy. You can see his fields are just beautiful. He has a great team he works with. He has about 15 acres of seeds and then about 15 acres of other things. Another one of our seed growers from India. This gentleman is a flower seed grower. He actually is he's still a hobbyist, but he's actually a large seed grower. I think he has about 2,700 acres of flower seed. So he's still even though he's really big, he's still super passionate and about every little detail. And of course, we're always finding new seeds. Here we are on a trip to Thailand. This was a number of years ago. Most of the seeds come to us from individuals or things we find online or things people bring to us. But my family or others in the company, oftentimes as we travel, we're always looking for something cool, something unique, something disease resistant, and also collecting stories and recipes. And as we travel, we're always sharing seeds as well. Here is one of our former employees. He's retired now, but he's visiting actually with the first president of Tanzania, and I forgot his name, but anyway, no, not Tanzania, Zambia. I believe it was Zambia, but anyway, he was visiting there. This gentleman was very into heirloom seeds, and he invited us to come over, and I unfortunately wasn't able to go, so one of our managers went over and visited with him for like half a day, and they talked seeds, and his whole goal was getting more seeds into Zambia, getting more people involved with heirloom seeds. The interest in old seeds, is basically, it's not just something that happened in the U.S. It happened everywhere. Everybody everywhere, I think, started realizing what happened to our old traditional varieties. What's happening to our agriculture? Why don't our tomatoes taste good anymore? Why does the corn taste the way it does? So I think overall, everywhere you go, people are into heritage or heirloom or antique seeds, and we're excited, to see that trend to continue each year. This is Richie from Jamaica, and he's one of our, if you write to us on Instagram or Facebook over the years, or sometimes in the email, he's one of our main horticulturalists that answers questions. He comes up to Missouri some of the time, but most of the time he's answering in Jamaica. And he's a super knowledgeable young guy. He started ordering from us when he was like 15 years old. He sent us a letter and wanted to know, hey, do you guys have any opportunities for me to come up and spend a few weeks with you guys? And he came up when he was around 18. And he's about 28 now or so. And we're actually working on a project in Jamaica now where he's going to start trialing more of our varieties there. We're looking to buy a few acres. And he's going to move into the country and start trialing local varieties as well as varieties from here, and making sure they come true to type, because that's one of our things we try to do every year, as well as do more research and keep answering questions when people write in. So now I'm going to jump real quick into just kind of going through some of our favorite varieties. This is Agastache. There's many different colors of Agastache, and it goes by different names too. Korean hyssop's another type of Agastache. But this is one of my favorite plants for pollinators as well as tea, as well as fragrant flowers. It's super fragrant, super easy to grow, and it's one of those plants that the more you plant around your garden, the more pollinators you bring in. We found the last few years, the more we mix up your garden, instead of just trying to grow a big garden of tomatoes, the more you mix it up with more different plants that bring in both beneficials and pollinators, the less pest you have. When you plant all tomatoes in one area, it definitely builds pest. But these bring in, the amount of pollinators since we started planting a bigger variety every year has just increased and increased. The monarch butterflies have gotten heavier and heavier. The bees have gotten heavier and heavier. All sorts of little bees and wasps and stuff that you never even knew existed suddenly start appearing. Another crop, I'm just going to go alphabetically through them, is bitter melon. This is one of the Okinawan white varieties. We've got two now. But bitter melon is one that, and here's a green one. Bitter melon is a crop that has shown a lot of promise, a lot of research in Asia for everything from diabetes to heart treatments and so forth. Nothing's approved yet in this country, but there's lots of research you can look up online where it's super healthy and a healthy diet. It does taste bitter. Kind of like dark chocolate tastes bitter. Some people don't like it. Some people can't handle the bitter taste. But it's definitely, all the research proves that it's definitely super nutritious. Whether it will help cure anything in the future, that's to be unknown at this point. But it's definitely an important part of a healthy diet. Areas that eat this, like Okinawa, was listed in the Blue Zone diets as one of the healthiest foods you can eat in the Blue Zone diets, along with purple sweet potatoes and other seaweed and other vegetables. But this is one of those superfoods that's super easy to grow. It also makes a beautiful plant over an arbor. They're super fun to grow, colorful. And the red seeds inside actually have a gel around them. It tastes like kind of like cherry jelly. So it actually makes a fun jelly. It's bitter melon. There's a bunch of different varieties. The first one was, actually these are both varieties from Okinawa. But the white one is my favorite because it's so unique. You never see it. The green ones are commonly available, but the white varieties, we searched for about 10 years before we were able to get enough seed to start offering. Butterfly pea, that's another one of our all-time most popular plants. And as you can see, you boil the butterfly pea flour with pretty much anything, and it turns it blue. You kind of like a beet turns everything red. This turns everything the most bright, vibrant blue. From rice to ice cream to pasta. You can also put it in anything sour like lemonade, and then it turns either purple or pink, depending on how tart the sourness is, or vinegar. So you can make a pink pickle, or you can make a blue rice, or a blue ice cream, or a blue tea. It's also supposed to be super healthful, and it grows in the South. It grows pretty much like a weed. It doesn't produce a lot of seed, and it takes a long time to produce seed, but you can definitely, if you're careful, you can save plenty of seed each year for yourself in the South. You just want to save whatever comes off the plant, and you can keep it going each year. I'm not going to mess up how to say this one, but it's something like Jai Mai Sai or something like that. It's a Japanese superfood green that they've bred over the years to have. And when we tested against all our other Asian vegetables, this one was #1 in nutrients. It was pretty much across the board. It's high in protein. It's high in like vitamin C. It's high in calcium. All across the board. And it also tastes sweet. So it has no bitterness like a mustard. So this is one of the greens that we recommend because it also thrives in the heat and in the cool weather. Not severe cold, but it will go down to probably about 12 or 15 degrees. So a lot of the South, it would be perfect for winter growing. But it's one of the few greens that really thrives all summer in our greenhouses. And our greenhouses reach, right now we don't have cooling walls in most of them, so they reach upwards to 120. And so inside a greenhouse, though, you are blocking some of the sun's rays. So even though it's 120 in the greenhouse, you're not getting the intensity of the sun. So it kind of balances out a little. Bok choy is another one of our favorite vegetables. We offer several different varieties from China and Japan. This vegetable is probably our #1 producer pound for square foot. It literally, these mini bok choys get really thick and wide. They weigh up to a pound a piece, even though they only are about 8 or 9 inches tall. They get that broad base on them. For poundage per square foot, I know nothing that can produce it. And when you look at protein per square foot, it's going to be, even though protein might be 3 or 4%, it's still the amount you're getting per square foot is like unbelievable with bok choy. Lettuce is also a huge producer per square foot, but most of the lettuce are lighter weight. So the lettuce probably way less. But lettuce and bok choy are the two crops where in a greenhouse, they literally, you can plant them if you leave no row, you can plant them like the Chinese do, the solid greenhouse, and work your way backwards. Plant them thick enough so you don't hardly have any weeds, and then go in and harvest the same direction. You can plant them like either stage them or all at once. And that way you can get like a tremendous harvest in a small area, and they can grow really close together. Like as close together, some of the varieties is 3 or 4 inches, and others need about maybe 6 inches. This is the fielder kraut cabbage. We'd actually been looking for this one for years. This was the first year we grew it. It was an old German heirloom. These don't look that big, but these are about 18 inches or so tall, and it was grown in the spring and the fall. They'll even get bigger. They can get over 2 feet tall, and they'll weigh probably around 10 pounds. So it's actually a big-headed cabbage, and it's famous in Germany for being the best flavor of all cabbage. And I just love the shape of it. It looks amazing in the garden. And these big, huge heads with these big spear-shaped heads are amazing. They have a festival in Germany, the Fielder Kraut Cabbage Festival. This was the sauerkraut cabbage of Germany up until maybe the last 100 years when the round-headed commercial varieties, the hybrids, started coming out. And this one gradually disappeared, and now there's people reviving it. And it's been hard to find, so we're excited to finally find a seed grower, an organic seed farmer in Switzerland who was able to supply us with a limited amount of seed for this coming year. Calibos cabbage, another one of the pointed head. This is an Eastern European variety. I just find these pointed head cabbages really beautiful. They're also easy to grow. And this variety in particular, I think, is the most beautiful red cabbage. The color of it is a vibrant, like a neon red color. It's not as dull as the other ones. And the flavor on it is super, super sweet. Overall, this is probably my #1 cabbage that we grow. And then this is the Sapporo Giant. This variety grows anywhere from 20 to 40 pounds. It's from northern Japan in Sapporo. Another variety, again, that was popular for pickles and kraut, and it just gradually disappeared, and now there's like 20 farmers left growing it commercially on a small scale. I think they have about 40 acres in production is all they have left. And we'd been looking for this variety and finally found a grower in Japan that's producing limited amounts of seeds. A lot of these varieties, the supplies are very limited because they've kind of fallen out of favor due to hybrids and modern varieties. But this variety is one of the biggest. It's not the biggest cabbage out there, but it's definitely one of the biggest. It's the biggest variety from Japan. There's a few other like English varieties that grow even bigger, but this is one of the traditional varieties that for production of a lot of food in a relatively small amount of space, it's hard to beat. And probably my favorite vegetable to eat. This is the Kyoto red carrot. You can only grow it in the cool part of the year, so you got to plant it. We grow it mostly in greenhouses in deep, loose soil, but you can also grow it outside, especially in the south. But the flavor of this carrot is like none other. It's sweeter, and it also, when you make juice out of it, it tastes a cross between carrot and watermelon juice. So, and that's one way. The other way it's really delicious is roasted. When you have these roasted, you'll always eat these out of the pan before you'll eat your regular yellow carrots, which are also amazingly good. But the red ones, the intensity of flavor is just more intense. That dark red color is incredible. This is the Manpukuji carrot. That's Zoe, one of our photographers, and she's holding it there. This is a very thick one. But it's not the longest we grew this year. The longest we grew this year was 5 foot 6 inches. There's some with our children there. We grew a bunch of those. We grew them in big like culvert pipes, and they just kept growing and growing and growing. The biggest ones probably weigh, I don't know, must be getting close to 10 pounds. But and they're still delicious. They're not as good as the Kyoto red, but this one's called Manpukuji. And it's one, again, from Japan, and again, it's only a small club that's keeping it alive. There's only a few dozen gardeners that formed a Manpukuji carrot club in Japan, keeping it alive. But it's probably one of the greatest carrots around if you're wanting to make carrot juice. And the only thing is, everybody wants to know, what about soil? And it definitely takes deep soil or growing them in raised beds or pipes or tubes. There's Frank, one of our horticulturalists, with some big ones we had earlier this year, I believe. And it's always fun. Our employees, this is the crop our employees love to harvest because everybody wants to see it being harvested because every year we're curious how big are they going to be when we pull them out of the ground. Our most popular carrot is this New Kuroda carrot, and then you can see the Kyoto red carrot side by side. The New Kuroda carrot's good for almost year-round production. Anytime it's not above 100 and not below like 20 degrees, the Kuroda carrot's a wonderful carrot, and it's a tropical carrot, so it actually grows better than any other we've tried in the hot, humid climates. And this one is fabulous for fresh snacking. That's what I recommend the Kuroda carrot, the New Kuroda. The juice is sweet and mild. It doesn't have as much flavor as the Kyoto carrot, but for crispy snacking carrot, it's probably the best one, and the Kyoto red next to it is probably the best one for cooking and juicing. But for fresh snacking, that's the one that, and if you read our reviews online, it just has continuous positive reviews of people planting it in hot weather, saying they never could get carrots in the hot weather before. And cauliflower is another crop we do. We do it outside some, but mostly in greenhouses. As you know, there's enough little pests to come along to eat holes in it. And we produce thousands of pounds of cauliflower every year. This variety is called Amazing. It's a European variety, and you can see it produces amazing heads. They're incredible, up to 6-7 pounds. Most of them are about 5 pounds. And that's one of our main food sources through the winter as far as leafy type vegetables go, is this cauliflower, amazing, and a few others. When we were in China a few years ago, we adopted 2 children, Ella and Sion, and we were there, and it was beautiful. We had a great time, and this was like 5 years ago, and the lady that was helping us tour around and help us with paperwork and so forth, said, we found out I was into seeds and was like, hey, I know I have a seed market. I can help you around and go to look at some seed markets. And I was like, sure, that was exciting. So we drove for about 30 minutes and we entered into this little alley, and then it opened up into a courtyard where there was about a dozen seed merchants in there. And one of the things that I found when I was in China was a packet or 2 of this Chinese pink celery. And we got home and I trialed it. I was like, is that Photoshop or is that real? And it's various shades of light to medium shades of pink, pastel pinks. And it's been our most popular celery ever since we introduced it. Now, some of the produce companies are starting to pick it up, like Melissa's has it on their website now, and several other seed companies, Wild Garden Seeds is selling it. I think Pine Trees, a couple of the different companies are selling it. And so it's exciting to see these varieties because this was totally unknown in America. And if I wouldn't have seen that packet, it might be 3 or 4 more years before it shows up. You never know how long sometimes things take to. But then once they're here, people find out about it. The funny thing is, this variety in China, they call it American celery. But we don't have anything like this in America, so that was the confusing part. But it's definitely one of the best celeries we grow. It's also a little more heat resistant. All celery, though, doesn't love heat. I mean, as anybody who's growing celery knows, but it is a little more heat resistant than typical celery. It has a stronger taste. It's more of in China and Asia in general, and in much of Europe, a lot of celery isn't thought of as celery sticks, as more of a cooking herb. So this adds a delicious celery flavor to soups or stews or anything you want to add celery to. And you can eat it like a celery stick, but they're a lot smaller, slender stalks. They're not like the big, crunchy. These produce a ton of small, like smaller than your little finger. Another one of the varieties that we discovered recently, or actually 5-6 years ago, I was looking through old magazines from like the 1860s. I think it was the American Horticulturalist or something like that. And they talked about these variegated coxcomb. And I finally found, again, seed in Japan on this one. And it looked identical to the woodcut prints in the old catalogs. And it was fun just to bring these things back because the color is, amazing looking. These big heads in your garden. They also produce delicious leaves. A lot of people don't know celosia and coxcomb. You pick the greens when they're young. They're every bit as good as a collard green, if not better. They're delicious. And the heads, as you can see in this picture, make beautiful food coloring and a mild sweet tea. So they're perfect for coloring jellies or jams or tea or ice cream. And they also add a nice sweet, mild, kind of I don't know how to describe the flavor, kind of an earthy taste, but very mild. It's a sweet floral, I guess a floral taste. A lot of people in the U.S. are used to cucumbers being, long and green, and they only keep about, on the counter 3 or 4 days if you don't put them in the refrigerator. This is the Sycam cucumber. Lots of parts of Asia, they grow cucumbers that you can store. This variety might store on the shelf for a couple of months. In a refrigerator, it might go 3 or 4 months or longer. So they think of cucumbers in a lot of places, not something you go to the grocery store and buy. It's something you grow, and you want to keep it as long as you can, just like people used to do with winter squash or cabbage or turnips. So this is a cucumber that's super sweet, super crunchy. It makes great curries, like as you can see in the picture here. It makes great pickles. You a lot of times need to peel it because the skin gets a little tough. With that tough skin, though, it also keeps them forever, a lot longer than regular cucumbers. So a lot of vegetables are out there that people just don't realize that, they think of cucumber as something you can only have for, the cucumbers are ripe. But there's a lot of varieties out there like this one that has been around for hundreds of years. And in other cultures, like in the Himalayas, this is what often people think of as a cucumber. I was out in the yard a number of years ago, and I was looking at the dandelions. I love dandelions, so they're everywhere in our yard. I don't try to do anything about them. They're beautiful. They're edible. The pollinators love them. And I was thinking, man, wouldn't it be cool if there was a pink dandelion? It just popped in my mind. I was sitting out there looking at the sky and laying in the grass, and I thought, okay, my phone's right here. So I Googled pink dandelion. And sure enough, in Central Asia, there's pink dandelions. So I got online and searched for a while and finally found somebody to send me a few seeds. And then we found a grower in Germany that actually produces seeds. So they only produce a little bit at a time, so we get a little bit of seed, and we have to keep getting a little more and a little more because it's not as productive as the yellow dandelion. But again, it's just an amazing plant. Our customers love unique things. So anytime we get something like a pink dandelion, everybody has to have it because everybody's used to yellow dandelions. It's just the novelty of having pink dandelions. This variety is brand new. We sell mostly heirloom varieties, which heirloom varieties, I should have probably said that at the first, but heirloom varieties are varieties passed down from generation to generation. They're traditional varieties. And this would be more of a new heirloom. It's something that was developed, and it's an open pollinated variety, which means it breeds true. It's not a hybrid. It's been selected enough years so it's become stabilized. Hybrids is a cross between two different varieties. And just like a Cornish cross chicken, they have to do that cross every single year. They don't keep breeding from that same stock. Generally, they do the cross over and over again to keep the best vigor. And that's what most hybrids are, whereas this is a stabilized, open pollinated variety, but it's a newer variety. So it's not a true heirloom, but it's on its way to becoming an heirloom. So we also work with plant breeders who are doing traditional plant breeding and coming up with unique things. This is a green echinacea. It's actually called Allen's green echinacea. And if you flip the next picture, there's Alan. He's an Englishman, but he lives in Holland, and he was at our place, and we got the seed earlier from their company, and we were amazed by it. We'd never seen anything like that. It looks just like the echinacea that grows out in the field, but it's a bright green, and it easily grows some seed and produces the first year. So just really novel. And Alan's a super fun guy, the most knowledgeable flower seed breeder I've ever met, I think. He's the nasturtium in the last picture, too, that he's holding is the purple emperor nasturtium, and he also developed that variety as well. So he was out at our place and showing us all the things. Some of the things that were there I didn't even know he developed. And we have fun growing things. This is the giant bushel gourd. That one was 217 pounds. That was our biggest one last year. We do a little bit of everything. Some's for the business, some's for fun, some's for research. But there's my daughter Malia, and we grew probably about 75 of these, and they range between 80 and 217 pounds. The average is about 150 pounds. But you got to get good seed. We got seed from a world record grower and got a few seeds and planted them, and it makes a lot of difference to genetics, as well as having really good, rich soil and taking care of them. One of my favorite vegetables, this one in China is known as snake bean. In the U.S., it's sometimes called snake gourd or snake melon sometimes. But if you like green beans and summer squash, our family likes this better than green beans or summer squash. It tastes like in between those two. It grows really easily in warm weather and produces a ton of these up to 5 foot long, slender fruits that they don't really have. I mean, different countries call them beans or melons, or because they kind of and gourds. They kind of are a different. They're not really any. They don't really taste like any certain vegetable. They're kind of their own thing, but it's fun to grow, and it's amazing. People see them in the garden, and it's like, what's that thing? But eating them, this is probably our number one summer vegetable for our family to, cook. It's super delicious. Snake gourd or snake bean, snake melon. It goes by different names, but you can Google it under any of those names. This is my favorite little lettuce. It's the Tom Thumb. You can pick them. They get a little bigger than this, but the hearts of them are only the size of a maximum about the size of a baseball. But for flavor, these little tiny vegetables pack all the flavor of a big lettuce head into that little tiny head. So you get a tremendously sweet, lettucey taste. And it's an old variety and just super fun to grow. We're getting more and more varieties of vegetables from India. We work with a gentleman from India who, again, has been ordering our seeds for years and wanted to know what he could do for the company. So pretty much now he works full-time for the company, and he just travels around finding different vegetables. But this is one of the Indian varieties we've introduced in the last few years. It's the Kajari melon, and it's our number one melon now that we grow at the farm. It's more resistant than any other melon we have found so far, in Missouri anyway, for various conditions. It produced last year in a hot greenhouse that was getting about 120 degrees every day. It produced for over 3 months straight, every day, almost every day. We only had like probably 8 vines in there, and almost every day we'd have 3 or 4 fruit. So it was the most productive and also right at the top as far as being the most delicious melon. They're like between a cantaloupe and honeydew in flavor, and kind of unique as well. They kind of have their own taste, but a little bit of a pineapple taste as well. But the color of them is just beautiful. the color of them, and that's why it's become our #1 bestseller, our #1 favorite with our customers. Is it's just so pretty. It's called Kajari melon, and it's a variety that's been in India for about 70 years. And it's definitely, if you're looking for melons, this is the one I recommend anywhere in the South. Lanzhou white melon. This one was actually introduced from Iowa to China in 1946 by Vice President Wallace. And he took this, I think it was probably like a family heirloom. He took seeds. He was a seed collector as well as a politician, and he loved gardening. So he took seeds to China as well as brought seeds back from China on his 1946 visit to China. And he visited villages. The story is interesting. It's in one of our old whole seed catalogs. But the story is incredible. His trip there, what he found. But this is something he took to China, and nothing was heard about it for like 40 years or 50 years. And in 1995 or 6, something like that, a professor from China came back to Iowa and taught here in Iowa for a few years, brought this variety back with him. It was known as Wallace's melon or white Lanzhou, which is where it's from. And he brought the seed back, almost identical. I mean, they adapted it a little bit to Chinese tastes, and over years things changed just a little bit, but very similar to the original that Wallace took there, a half a century before. Here's a picture of Wallace there right there on the side there. And anyway, that's the stories. That's just a story in a nutshell of the whole story of his trip and what he did and found. But with the heirloom varieties, that's just, they all have stories. Some of the stories are lost, but that's the fun of the whole job of collecting seeds, is bringing the stories to life, meeting the people, meeting the old grandfather or whatever in the village that tells the story of his seed or their family seed is always really exciting. And having people come into the seed store and look for seeds that they maybe haven't seen since they were a child. I've seen older gentlemen that came in, they were like in their 90s, and they were in tears because they found something their grandmother had, and they hadn't seen it since then. This is the Mizuna. It's one kind of Mizuna. We have about 4 or 5 different kinds. But in Japan, especially around Kyoto, Mizuna is one of the #1, if not #1, leafy vegetables. It's added to everything from hamburgers to soups. It might be on top of macaroni and cheese or spaghetti. It's basically, it's a garnish, but it's also a delicious, kind of like we use lettuce on a lot of things. It's healthier than lettuce. It's more colorful than lettuce, and it actually grows easier, at least as easy as lettuce, if not easier. And we have a lot of fun growing it. We love mixing it in salad with lettuce. Like, you mix in about 1/3 of this to 2/3 lettuce, and it makes the best salad if you blend the two together. They just complement each other really well. But it's also wonderful, like on a ramen soup. You put a little on top of ramen soup. And for flowers, probably our #1 overall favorite flower right now, at least as far as a flower that's really trending, is nasturtiums. People love nasturtiums because they're not only colorful and beautiful. They don't do real well in the middle of summer, but any spring and fall or even early summer, they do amazing. But the thing that people found out about nasturtiums is, besides their color, is the leaves make amazing pesto. As you can see in this picture, they make amazing salads. The flowers are delicious in salad. They taste like watercress. They're great on sandwiches. The seeds are kind of like capers. They can be pickled, and they taste almost identical to a caper. So the whole plant is so useful. It's as much as a vegetable as a flower, really, if not more. It's one of the best plants for, if you want to feed some to your chickens, they're great for that. But for us, just using them in the kitchen, they make so many great dishes out of them, and they're so easy to grow. You basically throw some seeds out there, and you have nasturtiums. Petunia is another flower that kind of has become synonymous is with the front of banks and in the front of City Hall and everywhere. It's kind of very generic. And a lot of the old varieties, like these Super Abysma petunias that were actually found in Ventura, California by a plant breeder lady out there that was a hobbyist in like the 1880s. She developed suddenly these giant, like 6-inch across petunias, and they've kind of fallen out of style. A Czech petunia breeder in the Czech Republic has been keeping these guys alive and developing more colors of them. But these are giant petunias. And the unique thing about petunias, over the last few years, research has been done, and they're using it more and more as a flavoring for cherry or almond. So they have a very distinctive, like, cherry flavor. So they're great put in ice cream or on donuts or in tea, or they definitely add a very floral flavor. So again, a great flower just to add to salads. The whole flower can be just picked and put in salads. Here's a new radish we grew from Japan. It was delicious. I forgot the name of it but it's one that we're going to have in the catalog hopefully in the next year or two. I harvested some in the middle of winter. I think it was around Christmas time, and brought them in, and I couldn't quit eating them. They're so sweet. And the name means, and it means mussel, red mussel, because they think it looks kind of like a mussel with the little strips along it. It's a really unique color pattern on it. And of course, our most popular winter radish it's known in the U.S. a lot of times as watermelon radish or Chinese red meat radish. This one you plant in the fall, harvest in the early winter, and it's sugary, sweet, high in nutrients, super healthy radish. And it's what's more fun to grow than a radish you can cut open and it's watermelon colored inside. Kids love it because it's not spicy at all, as long as you grow it at the right time of year. If you grow it in the spring, it'll either bolt or be super hot. And here's one that we're working on. This is a green-colored squash. It's iote squash from Guatemala. Sometimes they vary in color a little bit from being like a avocado green to a clovery green to kind of an orange and green mix. But this is one we're working on, we're hoping to have in the future. It tastes kind of like butternut, but better. It's one of the few squashes I actually enjoy raw because it's almost like a melon-like in flavor. It's super sweet. It looks kind of unique. When it's cooked up, it almost looks like a cow pie instead of a pumpkin pie. But it's definitely one of those things that looks kind of crazy, kind of an avocado green color, but the flavor of it hands down better than any other squash we've ever grown. And there's Malia in our greenhouses with some of our stock flowers. That's another great edible flower for salads. Beautiful flowers. They have to be grown in the cool season. So they don't take heat at all, but in cool areas or in greenhouses, they do great. Stocks. It has a really ugly English name, just stocks. But other countries have better names than we have, but in the English, it's just stocks. But it's super easy to grow in cool weather, and it makes a great cut flower. If you do, especially if you have a high tunnel, you can get really high quality, high value cut flowers for any markets around town. People love them any florist loves them if you have a way to grow them, especially inside. Sweet potatoes is another thing we do a little bit with. I especially love the purple flesh varieties because of their nutrients. But we love working with sweet potatoes. And a lot of people don't realize on sweet potatoes, the leaves are as useful as the roots. A lot of people just think that it's the roots, but throughout Asia and Africa and many other places, the sweet potato leaves are one of the main things people use. They also make really beautiful sweet potato chips or sweet potato fries. The different colors are amazing to work with in the kitchen. The sweet potato pies, purple sweet potato pie is fun, and purple sweet potato ice cream. It's limitless possibilities, and again, a superfood crop that you can grow here that produces more production than a regular white potato or Irish potato, as they sometimes are known. A sweet potato has more nutrients. It's also lower glycemic than a regular potato. And, in the South, it's kind of sometimes hard to grow a really good crop of regular potatoes, whereas sweet potatoes, the more hot and humid it is, the better they do. Our most popular tomato year in and year out almost every year is the Brad's Atomic Grape. It's one of my favorites for just snacking. If you're looking for a tomato that's sugary sweet, I just ate some of these just a few days ago before we left. Just delicious. They have these various color patterns going on. It was developed by my friend out in California, crossing different varieties over the years, Brad Gates, and it's just hands down just a wonderful tomato if you're looking for one that's sugary sweet. Black strawberry, another really pretty tomato. I love these multicolored tomatoes because you kind of get a little bit of the color. Each color has a different flavor, and when you mix the colors, you get a little bit of different flavors going on. If you taste an orange tomato, it tastes distinctly different than a red tomato, especially if you have a really good heirloom variety. And then you have a black tomato, and it has a different flavor too. So these multicolored tomatoes, you kind of get that multiple different flavors going on in your mouth at one time. This is one that gets huge. It's the orange accordion. If you're looking for a really big, just massive tomato, orange accordion is really fun. It's kind of a drier tomato. You can cut it open and scoop it out. It's great for stuffing, and it's just fun to grow. It looks beautiful. This has been our most popular tomato for people growing in the wintertime. All these people with the little indoor grow lights and the little grow box kit things that people have. This is the main tomato people have been growing. If you go on Instagram or wherever, you can see lots of people doing these. Some people even just doing them in the sunny southern windowsill. They're surprisingly productive, and they can be really short like this, or if the light's low, sometimes they get leggy up to 18 inches. But if you have plenty of light, they stay very small and produce a surprisingly a large amount of fruit. Some people I know have been using them, the same plants, for over 2 years, and they're still producing. And that one was orange hat tomato. But anyway, the next picture is pansies. Again, another great flower for edible flower growers. If you're marketing to people like restaurants or even your home kitchen, pansies are one of the most tasty, flavorful little flowers to add on top of salads, and they produce all winter long. This is one of the first heirloom varieties we introduced, if not the first one that we introduced through our company in the United States. It's Alibaba watermelon. A gentleman from Iraq sent it to us right about the time when the Iraq war was starting. And he was like, these varieties are disappearing. They're introducing new seeds. The war is going on. We're going to lose a lot of our old varieties. Can you keep this variety going for us? It's an old watermelon. And it's been a customer favorite ever since. There's been lots of articles written about it, included in lots of articles over the years and different books. But super sweet, super reliable, and it keeps well. You know, one of the best watermelons also, we boil it down. If you just boil it down, you crush it and boil it down. It makes an amazing, like, kind of like pumpkin butter, but it's like watermelon butter, as you can see in the picture there. You just boil it down, and think of pumpkin butter, but with watermelon flavor. This is a little new variety we introduced. It's called Lemon Drop Watermelon. They're about the size of, I don't know, a tiny cantaloupe, like a 2-pound cantaloupe, 3-pound cantaloupe, or a little bigger sometimes. But they're yellow outside, yellow inside. Our customers love them. I was just reading the reviews a couple days ago. I always want to check up and see what people think, but customers love this variety. It's been doing really well in a lot of gardeners. It's smaller, for a lot of gardeners, it's smaller, and it also produces well. And these smaller fruited varieties tend to produce, sometimes when the big varieties are a little bit of a struggle for people. And here's zinnias, one of the standby flowers for every gardener. You need zinnias for pollinators. It's one of those things that we definitely always plant a lot of. And any year we plant about 50% flowers and 50% vegetables, approximately, with herbs mixed in there too. I kind of include flowers and herbs together. But having a diverse garden, you attract so much wildlife, and it's also beautiful. I mean, it's fragrant, it's beautiful, and so many of the flowers we're finding out that they're just as delicious as the vegetables. Like the balloon flower, for example, people see it around. They plant it in front of banks and in front of maybe in front of your local post office blooming. And in Korea, they use the root. It's a famous vegetable. So there's lots of things out there that we don't realize how delicious they are. And I really appreciate everybody coming out today. And we do have a place over here, out here just down this way toward the hall, the Heritage Hall or Homestead Hall. It's just down this way a little bit, and we're giving out free seed packets. So if anybody's welcome to come by and take a packet or two. And is that the end of the slides, or is there any more here? But yeah, anyway, I appreciate everybody coming out. I don't know how I'm doing with time. The website's rareseeds.com. What's that? When was I cut off? 2:30. But anyway, I'll go for I'll take a couple questions if anybody has questions. Yes.
So you mentioned a few times you started out with just a few seeds or a couple packets for some varieties. How long does it take you to then get enough to explore?
So the question was, when we get a few seeds, how long it takes us to offer those in the catalog or online. Basically, some things, when we get them in at hand, sometimes we can spin something up in as little as a year. Some things are super seedy, and we can produce them. Other times, we'll get something like that green squash, and we've been working with that for the first batch we got was 17 years ago, but the lot wasn't quite right and wouldn't work, and so we looked for a new lot. So sometimes some things have taken as long as 20 years to offer in the catalog, but in general, 2 to 3 years from the time we get something till it's in the catalog, but it can be more or less. We try to get it as quickly as we can if it's something cool, though. Yeah, and our place in Missouri is open 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, except for the festivals. You can find the festivals online on our website, and there's one more coming up in October at our place in Mansfield, Missouri. We're near Springfield, Branson area. And then we also have an event in California in September. It's the 3-day National Heirloom Expo that we help sponsor out there. So we'd love to have anybody that can make it out, stop in, and stop in at the village anytime. There's always people to show you around. There's about 20 or so greenhouses to tour, and stop in anytime. Thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you all for coming, and also, again, thanks to Rory Feek and the team here. They did an amazing job with the event, so appreciate everybody and Jessica being here and my family and everybody to help out. But you all enjoy your travels and stay safe.